Sponsored by Panasonic. Smart factory solutions for any mix, any volume. Introducing the new NPM W2S, the ideal placement solution for manufacturers who value reduced setup and changeover time over volume.
Time for the show wrap up here with Mike Skinner from US Tech. Great to see you again, Mike.
Great to see you too, Trevor. Thank you.
All right, so it's been a busy couple of days. Some people say the show's a little bit smaller, a little bit tighter, but you know, it seemed busy enough to me.
Yeah, I agree. I think we lost a few. It seemed to be a few exhibitors down, maybe from last year. But there's a little bit. What I'm hearing from some people is a little bit of a slump in the industry the last 4 months, and I think some of the smaller players just weren't ready to, to spend. They had to cut some things out of their budget, I think, for this year.
Yeah, that's kind of a shame because one of the things this show's not been short on this year has been innovation. There's been quite a few new products here on the show floor.
I agree. Yeah, more so than in some years past. I think too, some very interesting new. I wouldn't say small, but maybe small things that can have, I guess, a large impact in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what were your main takeaways?
There were a couple of really interesting things. One was, like you mentioned before, this company that's doing low temperature solder encapsulated in a kind of membrane that it keeps
in an oxide shell. Yeah.
An oxide shell, yeah, and you can so it keeps it liquid below its below its melting point.
Right. I mean, basically it reflows at just above ambient, which is incredible. And frankly, if it works, the ramifications are incredible for the industry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because imagine what happens when you drive the heat out of the industry. I mean, out of the process, I'm saying. You save all that money in energy costs, and basically you don't need 10 or 12 foot ovens anymore.
Yeah. I think too. One other company here that's really interesting is a company doing a sort of a diffused laser soldering called laser selective soldering.
Okay. Yeah.
And we saw them earlier this year at the Nuremberg show, but here they are with their brand and everything, and I think they're really picking up. It's really a neat idea.
Right. Yeah. No. Definitely. I mean, laser soldering and robotic soldering is definitely on the increase, and we've seen a lot of that this week. So that's good. Another thing we saw was on the tooling side was Aspire, a new company owned by Charlie Munkavage and Bjorn Dahl, who used to be with Kick. That's quite revealing.
It is very interesting too. He was explaining to me the other day the process there is they use it's basically a CNC, a mini kind of CNC machine to make sort of PCB handlers, and they mill it out of polyurethane foam.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, normally you would send out to get your tooling done. Might take you a couple of days to get it back, and it costs you a couple of grand.
And be made of metal.
Right. And I mean, this thing here, it does it in an hour or a couple of hours, and it costs you less than $100.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, and it's a benchtop machine.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it's great. I mean, I think one of the things that's happening with all the innovation that's coming down and all the smart factory stuff is that things are getting faster. People are needing materials faster. They're needing things to happen quicker. So that really fits into that area.
One thing I think too, over the last couple of years, we talked about software. As software has been growing at these shows, it seems everybody's some kind of new software. One company now kind of crossing between what you would think of as, I guess, manufacturing software and also as a company itself, as an enterprise, is a company I spoke to called Macrofab. And what they do is, it's basically a digital storefront where the customer interfaces with this Macrofab as if they were the manufacturer. And Macrofab uses this very sophisticated software to align the customer's criteria with maybe 40 factories that they have a very good relationship with. And the software sorts according to what the customer needs, to the certifications and the abilities and capabilities of each individual factory.
Now that is potentially very interesting because you're bringing in then the strengths that you get from working with a larger organization. I mean, when you take a project, a company like Jabil, for example, they'll not only look at all the manufacturing requirements and where they can do it, but they'll also look where it's been manufactured and where it's been delivered to. So they'll take into account all the geopolitical problems, the weather patterns, all sorts of different things to make that decision so that they really optimize the manufacturing cost and delivery and supply chain.
Yeah, and I think too this is interesting also because he was mentioning Misha, his name at Microfab, he was mentioning that there's this magic number of 37% of factories in the United States are underutilized. I'm sorry, 37% of the capacity of each factory in the United States is not being used. There was a
I would
40%.
I would say it's higher than that.
You think so?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, you go into any factory these days, and almost half the machines are sitting idle. You know?
It's amazing, yeah. And it's sort of, this is a really clever idea, and that it's sort of like a, yeah, like an Uberization of EMS. Yeah.
That's a neat idea, a neat description. Yeah. Anyway, great to see you again, Mike. Great to catch up. I hear you're going down to Guadalajara next month. I won't be there, but maybe we'll catch up at Productronica, and you can tell me what went on in Mexico.
We will, for sure. Thank you, Trevor.